What is up, Earthlings? Zube here, and I am with my friend Michelle, who is amazing. Oh, I might put you on the spot and just have you kind of briefly introduce yourself, but we are going to chat about most significantly the moon goings on for the month of December, and then we'll touch on some other astrology. Um, we've never done this before. It's a jam session. Bear with us if we're awkward, and I think this might be something that we continue to do. But anyway, Michelle, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, and you can just say a little about what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for my friend Teresa for helping out and kind of getting this started. I love this. We talk normally on a regular basis about everything that kind of goes on, but what I do is I work more with kind of like rituals and herbs and kind of routines, so ways that we can move through the moon cycles, new moons, full moons, eclipses, all that kind of good stuff, and unpack what it is that needs to get unpacked and kind of listen to our bodies and listen to things that we can make more tangible as we kind of move through these energies and these transitions. So that's what I really like to talk about, and that's what I really like to get into. I have a Nerva Buena business, and basically what it does is kind of uses the herbs that kind of grow naturally and grow with us to help our body kind of process those things as well. So I'm super excited to get started and kind of, kind of get into this. This is going to be great.
Awesome. Okay, so first I think we'll do the solar eclipse and then the full moon. That way people can kind of bail after that because
For
the
sure.
other astrology is a little more into it, you know what I mean? But so the solar eclipse. Um, anyway, why don't you tell? So first of all, I have December 4th at 1:42 a.m. in
Mhm,
Bernie. And so that's central time, adjust
mhm.
for time zone. We have a new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
And then to explain to everybody, so I do the astrology end of it.
Mhm.
And Michelle does, like, she knows astrology as well, but she's really cool with like the rituals and what we can really do. So I'm looking at the energies, and just because I always like to be transparent, I've been into astrology since I was young, but I've been studying it hardcore for just like 2.5 years. And so watching the eclipse cycles come around is something that only comes around like once every 6 months. So I'm still in the process of the experiential learning of it, you know what I mean? And so anyway, that's why I think this is really fun to bring Michelle on.
Love
So
it.
yeah, do you want to talk to us a little bit about, we've got it's going to be at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. um it's not, I don't have any direct aspects. There's like an 8-degree square to Neptune in Pisces. So that can be like a little bit of confusion. We also like Neptune creates a fog, it's
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like being uncertain, being unclear in
Yeah.
astrology from what I have, experienced so far. Solar eclipses are like basically the darkness kind of
Mhm.
gets in the way, and hidden information is
Right.
revealed, new things come up, sudden changes and pivots.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then for this one in particular, we have Mars squaring Jupiter. um and just briefly, Mars square Jupiter, Mars is in Scorpio, Jupiter is in Aquarius. We can we can be looking at some anger, some people
Right.
with big mouths, big feel
Yeah.
like, some aggression. And that's like a know-it-all energy to me, like know-it-all and the muscle behind it.
Sure.
So okay,
Yeah.
so what do you
It
have?
can definitely make things super fiery, yes. So like new moons, normally when you're coming into new moons, it's a waning crescent. So it's a waning energy that comes in. And normally when we're just looking at waning energies, We're talking about decluttering things. We're talking about detoxing things. We're talking about, it's more of like an older, wiser kind of energy. And it's really important to know, especially when we're looking at the solar eclipse, because the moon is super small in comparison to the sun, right? The sun is like huge, it's ginormous. It's like this giant thing. And all of a sudden it's going to be eclipsed by this little itty bitty thing. So that's exactly what you're talking about, where little itty bitty things can really kind of like make us into this ginormous ball of fire, right? It can really kind of get our things going. So if we're not focusing on acts of kind of goodwill, if we're not focusing on removing the things that are excess in our lives and giving to those who might need those things that we no longer serve us. So it can be clothes, it can be furniture, it can be those kind of tangible things. But also, if we're looking at our own emotions, things that maybe we don't need anymore, like extra anger or extra irritation, and turn that into, let me go volunteer for a little bit, or let me go and talk to a neighbor, you know, maybe who hasn't had much communication or much contact. So it gets you in a more peaceful state of mind, because if you're running with those energies as the solar eclipse, they're really hot things that can kind of burn you out. You need to be able to reserve that kind of energy. So really good rituals are, we might kind of say meditation, and some people might be hesitant to meditate or not know how to meditate. It can be as simple as waking up in the morning and seeing how the day looks. How do you present yourself to the day? And it's really kind of like that older school kind of energy, that really kind of peaceful energy that you're walking into, because you are going to find yourself irritated. You are going to find yourself really kind of motivated in a different kind of way. You are going to really try to want, with this energy, to take it by the reins and be like, well, I'm going to do something with it. It's mine. I don't care who else sees it, but I'm going to take it. And it's not always yours to take on, or maybe it's
Right.
just yours to see.
Right.
So
I love that. I mean, well, and it's like a mission of mine to get people to not get, but like, it doesn't have to be like, I don't
right,
even
for
fucking
sure.
do that. I don't do that. I mean, I come down here and I sit in my chair and I go like this for 20 minutes every
Right.
day. And I prefer silence. Sometimes I have music, but and then afterwards I'll like look at my calendar, but it's kind of it's about, for me, and you can clarify, but for me it's about not consuming media, and not having music with words, because
Right.
because I feel like the words engage my brain in a way that doesn't make it feel meditative. Anyway, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like if you think of the moon as it kind of helps our emotions, it kind of rules kind of how they kind of come about and bring them up. It's a daily thing. It never doesn't happen. It always happens. So we have to be just as routine like in terms of what it is that helps us with our emotions. So if that means that every day we walk out our front door and, go into the dirt, kind of ground a little bit there, if it means that we burn a certain incense and write just a word with it for that day, those daily things are really going to impact us as they continue to build, because it is going to be our foundation from here on out as we kind of move through December. We're really going to need those daily things to keep us organized, so that way we're able to receive the information that we really need, because it really is at this point in time about understanding our conscious mind. What is it really trying to tell us? Where is it trying to move us? Because that sun is a big aspect, and with Sagittarius wanting us to do a lot of adventurous kind of things, we need to have a direction. And the
Yeah.
best way to have that is to have that routine, to have that mind about us, rather than just kind of like, jumping up and popping off, and we'll see what takes us where, because that can kind of get us in a lot of trouble sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and that goes with the so with the archetype of Sagittarius, um, they're like the believers, like the kind of teachery gurus sort of. I don't know what, like, I just have an image in my head where, there's this like person running around like, yes, this is that and that is that, and just taking a big paintbrush and like sweeping it over everything, and so it's about beliefs, right? And
Right.
what I was feeling from this eclipse is that, and then with the Mars square Jupiter, because Jupiter is also learning and knowledge. Um, Mars can take what we already have and try to strong arm it on
Yeah.
other people. But with the eclipse, like something might be coming in, and if we're
Yes.
receptive, we might be like,
Yes.
holy shit, wait.
Yes. Exactly. So the last video that you did, you talked about kind of being more intuitive and listening to our intuitive side versus that other side, that that brain of doubt, that thing that kind of like, okay, well, we need to rationalize what it is that we're doing and not letting the intuitive. With the routine, you are letting that intuitive come out, but it's in a more creative way. It's in a more less analytical way. It's really more in a moving way that you're able to do that. So when you get those intuitive parts of it, you are right, exactly. This other part of you is going to kind of wrestle for reason of, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, because X, Y, and Z is going to be expecting it. When if you're really able to listen to that energy piece, that soul piece, that spirit piece that you have in doing those routines, that is what you're going to become more accustomed to listening to and believing in. That way you are able to move the things that you need to move and see those things that are coming, rather than it continuing to be hidden or clouded or foggy.
Or foggy, right, with Neptune.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this it's making a trine over to Chiron, the wounded healer in Aries. Okay, so briefly, as Chiron is going through Aries, we are literally, like be learning to be okay with ourselves. Like Aries is who I am, you know what I mean? So we're all in, and Chiron is the wounded healer. Like I'm gonna make other people feel okay and heal that part of them, when really I'm like, am I this is where my Chiron is in my natal chart. So sometimes I'm like, am I like all right, like as a person, like acceptable and stuff like that. So this eclipse is kind of bringing in that, that healing as well, like with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to go deep, and it's going to be,
Yeah.
but it's really going to be good. Yeah. And that's where, certain things it's going to cause, like triggers, or get, I guess, events, emotions that come up. Sometimes they can kind of cause us to feel more anxiety.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's going to trigger us to really do a lot of self-doubt. So if you're able to grab on to some skullcap, if you're able to grab onto some rose, incense, things like that, that's really going to help, bring you back to that heart center place. Um, Skullcap is really an adaptogen, so it'll allow you to calm that nervous system that you have. Um, there's chamomile. That's always a really good one, to kind of bring you back down, and to make sure that those emotions that house in our belly, right, the ones that
Mhm.
really kind of get it cramped up and worked up, it calms that, because that's our cauldron that we have, that kind of either eats at us, quite literally sometimes, or allows things to be digested, allows things to be processed, allows things to be moved. Um, so that's, there are a couple really good things, really good herbs that you can use there, but those are really easy, accessible ones that we have at our disposal, sorry. Because it is, it really is going to move to the surface, kind of like this serving plate, I
Mhm.
guess, if you will. And it's going to be up to us to figure out what we're going to what we're going to do, how we're going to pick and choose, I guess, those pieces. And that wounded healer, they come out um, because it's a medicine that they want to make better. It's a
Right.
medicine that they want to perfect. It's a medicine that they really want to show um, the ability to move past those wounds. So even though it comes up and it's icky and it's sticky and it's thick, it's that mud that we've got to walk through before that, that lotus kind of comes up.
Yep.
And it continues to kind of open up um, and bloom and blossom. But yeah, we've got that mud, we've got that thick stuff. So
And that, yeah, and that also, so Mars is at home in Scorpio. So that's a good thing. And Mars in Scorpio, if we use that, like Scorpio is kind of is piercing and investigative.
for
So
sure. Yeah.
are we going to use that power to wield over other people, or that power to stand up for us and not hide?
Right. It,
Because Scorpio can be secretive, right? Where there, and where there's shame, and another thing that is just kind of jumping into my mind is kind of like, Scorpio rules like the private parts. So there can be like sex, or with the solar eclipse happening squaring Neptune, I always think of like addiction, like,
right.
there are things that we can escape into, that,
Yeah.
if we're not mindful of.
Right. So like reevaluating what it is for our communication, right? How do we communicate? How do we connect?
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes there are those individuals that we connect with and they really click with us and they're great and it's awesome. Other times when we click with somebody, a lot of times there's not that reciprocation. A lot of times there is also that, feeling when we're leaving or after we've been with them, that we kind of feel drained, or we feel, I've kind of recoup, or I need a couple extra days to just kind of, gain my bearing. It's an important time for us to reevaluate what it means for us to communicate, what it is for us to get that energy and keep that energy, sustain that energy. And it really is with us understanding that it's okay for us to be weird, right? It is
Yeah.
okay for us to be unique, and it is okay for us to do things as it moves and lives and breathes and it expands and changes within ourselves, within our conscious, within our being, because there's nothing that says, oh, you made this choice today, you're going to be admonished if you decide that maybe that's not the best fit for me tomorrow or the next day. Really, quite honestly, it's all about growing. It's all about
Yeah.
understanding. It's all about revealing and being put in a place or caught in a place where you're not reciprocating that kind of energy at this point. You really need to take ownership of that and say, what is going to work for me and what's not? What is a good boundary? And with that communication piece, especially with Scorpio, they do have a tendency, or it does have a tendency to be shadowy, kind of mysterious, but our our opportunity at that point to bring to light those shadows. Um, and the other side of it, Scorpio kind of gets a bad rap in terms of they're very, very deep and they are very, very loyal. However, it is bringing up the things that might be uncomfortable. And that's okay for us
Yes.
to bring up uncomfortable things, right? It really is. It's super important not to beat ourselves up about it, but to know that we're not always going to be 1,000% comfortable. Not everything is going to fit, and that's okay.
Yeah. A lot of times when I do readings for Scorpios, or, and I'm Cancer, Scorpio is like my favorite. I look up to them a little bit because I feel kind of like babyish and soft with my emotions, and Scorpios are just badass. But I always ask, I'm like, so does everybody tell you everything? And they're like,
Right.
yes, everybody tells them their secrets, because Scorpio does not scare easily. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they're very good at keeping secrets. And like, Typically, I mean, it depends on how they're aspected, but for the most part, you can tell someone with a lot of Scorpio energy, anything, and
Hmm.
they'll like get down there with you in it
Yeah.
and not without judgment. You know what I mean? Um, and that's a big generalization, but that's what I've found. Like my Scorpio friends are just not afraid, and they can be the most put together people on the outside, and you think like whatever, and I'm thinking of one friend who like works in finance and she's, like
Oh
got
yeah,
everything in order, but I can tell her like some of my addiction stuff and it's like, oh, okay. From
for
the
sure.
outside you wouldn't know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just not having fear of those emotions and stuff. Um, and I was looking at, wow, so yeah, like the planets are all playing with each other. I mean, this Mars is being supported in a sextile. So we've got Mars is squaring Jupiter, but in a trine with Neptune. And that's where, are we going to square Jupiter? Are we going to be aggressive with the
Right.
knowledge that we have?
Right.
Or are we going to take that Mars trining Neptune is like, really, are we going to move forward spiritually,
Right. Yes.
instead? And they're each in sextiles with Venus in a conjunction with Pluto. So that's like transformative. So Mars and Venus are in a sextile. It's like Mars, Venus, Pluto, and Neptune are all chilling in a
Yeah.
good way.
Yeah. And like right now it's like I think with all of the eclipses, and this is like the last one that we're gonna have for the year, but like the solar one, but I think this is like an excellent time to get your birth chart done. And
Mhm.
like, this is really what I would kind of push, especially for not push, but this is what I would really advise for individuals who, watch this or who, kind of get tarot read from you, because it is an awesome opportunity to see what aspects are coming up and what it is if you are not quite sure. Maybe you're feeling the feels, but you're like, I know, but I don't want to know kind of thing. Or if you're not exactly sure how to pinpoint it, now is a great time to get that birth chart and bring it up and see what it is. And it's not saying that you have to pick everything, but now is a great time when it shows you, okay, what are some spots right now that for you are probably an important time to kind of take a look at, and how these routines and these rituals that you'll create for yourself in your space to unbox, or maybe the boxes are there and you need to get them out of your way, or maybe it is that you need to put things in a box and gift it. Thank you very much, universe. It was great while it lasted, but bye for now.
But
Thing.
yeah, well, no, and I mean, that's the thing that I love about astrology is that there are so many cycles and rounds, and that, the eclipse cycle is like 18 years in some ways, 9 years in other ways, 6 months in other ways, and so, um, I pulled up your chart before we got on, just to like, and then we can talk about mine too. But just sometimes I don't, it's a way to share one of the ways that you can use astrology to work with your life. But the eclipse is happening. Um, wait, go. Hold on.
So excited.
I know. Have you? I don't know if you've looked or not, but in the area of your chart. Wait a second. I pulled it up and I didn't look at it. It's in your first house.
Oh, right on.
So
Love
it's
it.
like that's you as a person.
Mhm.
Um I don't know. So sometimes with that, the first house can be really fun because that's what you were just saying about like you might appear different, or you might be like, I want to like change the way I look or change the way that I interact with other people, you know,
Right.
or like do my hair different, or I want to start. Didn't you come into the crystal shop or of Amuse, wearing like with your face done and everything, and we were
Yeah,
like,
because it's totally, yes, it's totally been that kind of journey for me where before I was like, okay, I need to get some other things down. And really like the hair or the presentation kind of piece
yeah,
of it was, it's not really what I'm looking at right now. It is more of my day to day, and it's really more peeling back these kind of layers. And now that they're very exposed, really doing a lot of work, now it is more about, all right, well, I think I dig my weird, but
yeah,
I'm going to do something with it too. So yeah, I have felt that, you know, that and that kind of that presentation about how how I'm going to be more of service. And be more of service
mhm,
doesn't mean that you have to, while you're going through your work, look like you're, you know, got into like a fight or something like that because it's hard work that you're doing. But it is a matter of me coming through saying, I really do like how I present myself,
mhm,
and to find some balance in how you're presenting, not only externally but internally.
yeah,
And when you're finding that, yeah, you're definitely going to have that, those reinforcements or those dings where people are like, man, what? Just that is, you know, that's awesome. So it's really kind of, you know, good boost there to kind of be like, yeah, I'm on the right track when it comes to making sure the contour is good. But anyways, but
right,
but yeah, absolutely, it's definitely been with this Sagittarius kind of cycle
yeah,
that has been in. It has been very much okay, reevaluating how I'm bringing things to the table, to the universe, how I'm showing up for me,
yeah,
and with that energy. And I think that that's an important journey to go through continually, as we sometimes bombard ourselves with this idea of um not being in the right place at the right time, not understanding everything. It's
mhm,
more about being okay that you are continuously learning, you are continuously growing, you are continuously moving, just as the moon cycles. You are going through these cycles all the time with it together, conjunctively, rather than alone,
yeah,
out of sorts, disheveled. No, it's all a
mm,
part of it. So,
yeah. And it's on your the like the axis, so then the other one is the seventh house, so it's the Sagittarius Gemini axis, right? So that's in the solar eclipse right now is in your first house, which is all about you. But throughout the past 18 months, it would have been, I think it was since like May 2020,
uh-huh.
um it would have been about you and partnerships, who you
Yes.
are, and who, but which is, you know, potentially significant others and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Also, you were mentioning service to others, but there is that
Yeah.
axis. And
Yes.
this is where I'm like, yeah, we're doing this for the first time. I'll kind of I'll have to think about how like to organize that, because the axes are really what the moon and
Right.
sun cycle highlight, is that
Hmm.
but anyway, and then for me, just to kind of give a like another thing of why it's helpful to know where they're occurring. So they've been happening in my, okay, in my eighth and second house, where I've, you know, Gemini and Sagittarius, where I'm looking at my finances and shared resources, which is
Yeah.
really interesting because I'm with a partner who I struggle with that a little bit. It's like I'm starting up a business, and so we are sharing our finances anyway, and that's like that eighth house stuff of, you know, and second house, I'm like, well, I want my own finances, you know what I mean, but I'm just not there yet. But this is
Right.
what it's like to be a couple, you know.
Right.
And before the axis was there, I just think this is really crazy. It was in my ninth and third house, which is travel as
Oh,
opposed to like neighborhoods and what's near you. And my whole world flip-flopped, and my neighborhoods are now in two different places. So no, this shit is crazy, you guys.
yeah. And I mean, it totally, yeah, exactly. When we're thinking of like, okay, this is popping into my brain and this is why. And again, that's kind of like the subconscious, kind of the energy is moving through you and kind of vibrating certain things and pulling on those, those chords that really kind of mean something to you, but you become busy, right? You push it
Mhm.
off,
Yeah.
or maybe it's just like a worry, or I'm just going to not. That really kind of getting into those chart readings and understanding, or just like, okay, December, January, February. What is it that I want to do? How is it that I want to move? How is it that I want to go into this new year, right? We've unpacked a bunch of stuff from 2020 and we're now in 2021. We're ending 2021 that seemed to be just like this blink. I don't know, but
Did.
now we're kind of getting out of it and kind of getting all the maybe the wiggles or the shakes or the, okay, I'm ready to move, right? I'm ready to do something. I'm ready to put in action. Well, it's kind of great if we have a game plan, right? If we have an action plan. And that's where those charts really kind of help us hone in on what is it that we want to do? How is it that we want to show up? What is our next step? Um, because if we don't have those plans set in place and we don't have the ability to resonate with the things that are really calling to us, then we might get lost in that 2021 kind of shuffle again. So this is really time that a lot of people are waking up
Yeah.
and they're really becoming more aware of how they're presenting themselves and how they really want to be either connected or disconnected with certain things, um, stories or timelines, if you will, that they were feeding into before. They don't want to continue with that. So this, especially for us, when we're having these moon jam sessions, it allows that emotion side of that moon to really become unpacked in more of a conversation way, in a friends kind of way, which it really should. It really should be friends kind of getting together and you understanding in a caring and supportive environment how you want to grow and what you want to do with that growth. So
Yeah, totally. Um, so yeah, so okay, solar eclipses, we don't necessarily we don't do a ritual or a ceremony, anything like that.
right.
And what I'll do is I'll grab the herbs that you were talking about and kind of type
Hmm.
them up and put them underneath the YouTube video.
Hmm.
My cat. And then yeah, and so we'll do that, and that way people know. And then it's at 1:42 a.m. Now, something I was unaware of, because the night of the lunar eclipse, I was actually gonna leave and drive overnight to go up to Colorado. And then when I was talking to you, you were like, well, like you did, I didn't even ask you about it, but I decided not to because you said
Yeah.
it's kind of not a good idea to go out and be in,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
which I thought
Be in
was,
the thick of it. Yeah.
yeah, curious. Is that like the same for the solar eclipses, obviously?
So for the solar eclipse, because it's really going to be during our nighttime, I
It
guess, or
doesn't.
the time where we're going to be sleeping,
Mhm.
it's not going to affect us too much. We might have noticed up until this point that we're getting up. We might have been restless. We might have a really hard time sleeping. On the other side, we might be extra tired when we're waking up, like super sluggish. What is going on? And that is really that, I call it that grandma kind of energy, cleaning house, right? So
Mhm.
she's gonna wake you up at 4 a.m. para limpia to limpia los pisos, to clean the floors, to get that foundation working, or she's going to have worked you so much during this nighttime that when you wake up in the morning, you are tired, your body hurts,
I've wo-
you've done so much work.
I've woken up every day this week, Michelle, at 3 o'clock. And I
Yeah.
mean, That happens to me sometimes, but like
Okay.
it has been on the dot every morning at 3 o'clock for like the past 7 to 8, 7 or 8 days.
Yes. Hey,
Check out my cat's butthole.
she's in it. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the energy that's moving, like for last night, I guess the dogs were going like absolutely crazy. And it's not like there were a bunch of dogs that were barking in the neighborhood or anything like that. Our, I guess our people pets that we have here with us, a
Mm,
lot of the times when we're doing ceremony outside or we're doing any kind of cleansings and stuff like that, they want to be in it. They're outside with us. They're really kind of in tune with it. So when energies kind of get heightened or they're in that climax kind of upward movement, they will go outside and they'll do like the perimeter checks, I guess, kind of say. And that's exactly what they did not like to be inside. They wanted to be outside. They wanted to move around. And maybe around 5 o'clock or so, they were like, okay, we're kind of ready to come in. But it was because, yeah, you wake up and you're like,
mhm.
I've got some things to do. I've got some things to move around. There's purpose right now. There's movement. And there's really not a whole lot that you can do about it unless you're completely willing to be like, I get it. I got the
Yeah.
message. We're up. I'm waking up. I have to wake up. And you say, if you need some extra naps during the day, take your naps, if you need some extra rest, kind of be mindful of that and know that when your body is tired or rebuilding, sometimes um, the you don't have the wits about you to not be grumpy, right? Or
Mm,
not be kind of bitey. Um, and it's completely okay to then tell whoever you're with, hey, I need this resource of sleep, or I need
mhm.
this to slow down a little bit more. Or I am really working on this, because then it shows the other person that it is okay to be flexible. You don't have to be super person. You don't have to be all put together all the time. Everything is hunky dory.
Yeah.
You're modeling then what it means to make sure that you're really taking care of that self. But you're doing that because it's the Sagittarius cycle. They're very adventurous. They're very brave. They're very fiery, and they really want to take things by the reins. But you have to have that peaceful place first,
Mhm.
before you really decide and can be discerning on what it is that you are supposed to be taking on. Um,
Yeah.
Rather than making everything look like it's a giant dumpster fire, and it's really not. So
Right. Well, and the one of the things that I if I laid in bed and rolled around for like 2 hours and was like, this sucks, I can't sleep, I'd be so much more unhappy. And I figured out, I'm like, I'm just gonna get up, you
yeah.
know what I mean? And not complain about it. And I come down here and I get a ton of stuff done. And then sometimes I sleep regular. But something you were saying made me think of like if we stop, if we don't criticize what's happening and instead just like go with what's happening,
Yeah.
then there's a whole lot less of dumpster fire to get
There
stirred
is.
up about it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there is, like, sometimes you'll get those, inclinations where I want to do this or I want to do that, but oh my gosh, like I can't because I don't know, my bed's not made, or I've got a ton of laundry to do, or the dishes, or this or that, where maybe that's what your intuition is trying to prevent you from, that burnout or that little mini breakdown that you might be having. So it wants you to take a walk. It wants you to have some nice tea. It wants you to call that friend. So
Yes.
that way you have more of that connection, because those other things, they'll get done. And I think that's another thing that, through everything that's kind of happened, and especially with this kind of cycle, we've understood that not everybody has everything together.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, and it's okay that you don't have everything together, when what we're really doing is rebuilding things.
Yes.
So in that rebuilding, they're remodeling that, like, deconstruction kind of time period, it might look a bit disheveled, but you really have to take it that one step at a time. And just like I was saying, the moon cycles daily for us to kind of bring about that emotion. That's like our routine. Those are our steps that we take each day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, um, no, that's good. All right. I think, I know this, he's making me a little nuts. So do you feel, is there anything that you want to add for the eclipse? And then I
So
was,
yeah, I guess the only thing that I would really take into consideration when we're looking at this eclipse is, oops, I'm sorry, is maybe the night before, write down maybe what it is that you want to work on, or what kind of brings you peace. So if it's, you know, uh, hey, I want to get better at making a schedule. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just showing up to actually actively make a schedule, and maybe write down what that might look like. And it might be that you're not actively doing it. Maybe you're drawing it. Okay. Because sometimes people are super visual. You might draw what a schedule looks like. You might draw just the pictures of it. You might just say the words in the morning, I want to do this. By the afternoon, I want to do this. In the evening before I go to bed, I want to do this. So that way you're painting that picture for yourself of what it is, how you're showing up. And again, that moon cycle, it helps us bring out our emotions. But when it eclipses the sun, it allows us to show something that shines so bright and something that burns that fire of our day. How are we going to then reevaluate how we show up? And it's in our routines, it's in our rituals. And rituals don't have to mean something completely big or grandiose. They can be small, and they can be intimate, because they are very much how you are moving your energy and how you're interacting with that. So if it's a cup of tea, if it is music, just like you were saying, that you really just kind of sink into and allow it to help you resonate here in this place, in this space. And maybe it's walks, but really find something that grounds you and that holds you to that being that you are, that honors that being that you are, because you can't show up as anybody else. So you really want it to be you, to be your spirit. So
yeah. Yeah. And I always, yeah, I always tell people it can be so simple. I think that's the thing to, for people to really take away. It's like, and Allison said this, sometimes when people come into Ava Muse, they're like, where should I start? And it can be really intimidating to have like a spiritual practice, but you can start anywhere. Like I told someone once, I was like, do you see that shelf up there? Put something that means something to you up there. And you walk, look, it's right at your eyesight. You walk
yeah,
by it on a regular basis. When you look at it, just remember
yes,
you, you know?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And it could be that you are interested in learning about something else. That, active mind that you have to learn, that could be your ritual where you go back
Yeah.
to, every day. So
Yeah. And
I love
actually
it.
that's funny because Sagittarius likes to learn a lot.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you were saying, it is really helpful to know what house it's in, which is that kind of requires a birth chart. But
Yeah, so definitely get that done, please. Yes.
yeah,
Get that
yeah.
done. Teresa's awesome at it. So yes, make sure that you get that. Those are so amazing and
Oh my
wonderful and
God,
just help.
you're the best. Is it? It's fun. Okay. I'm gonna put it on pause for a sec. Boom. Okay, so we are back. Now we are going to talk about the full moon in Gemini, and I have that for December 18th, at 10:35 p.m. Central Time. So What I have for that, we have the sun in Sagittarius at 27 degrees. And then we have the moon in Gemini at 27 degrees. The sun and the moon are, the sun is in sextile to Jupiter, and the moon is in a trine to Jupiter. To put simply, Jupiter is really supporting this full moon, and Jupiter is a benefic. So a benefic is a beneficial planet, just a beneficial planet. Mars and Saturn are malefics, so their lessons and energies are a little tougher, right? Um, Jupiter and Venus are benefic. So anyway, Jupiter is growth and expansion, learning. It can be travel, but it's abundance and all of that. And that's in support of this full moon. So yeah. And that's going to be the full moon that wraps up the
It's going to be before the solstice. Exactly. Yeah. So
yeah.
before we kind of get into that, um, like shadowy kind of energy, it really does allow us the opportunity to give us that extra oomph in what we need to release. So, coming from the eclipse side of it with the new moon, now we're moving into the full moon territory. This is where we're really trying to write down and release what it is that is not working. Really, we were kind of being cautious, I guess, and mindful of all these big energies that were coming out. And that was because we have to allow ourselves that space to understand what it is that's, coming to our forefront, coming to our consciousness, what is really making itself known. It could have been a whisper before, and now it's like really kind of roaring out for us. So this is a great time for us to do our relaciones, or where there are candles. So we hold that visualization of what it is that we need to release. We can also write down in our journals what it is that we no longer want to have ties with. It could be people, it could be habit, it could be expectations, it could be the way that we're showing up in a relationship. So I want to kind of unpack that a little bit. And talk about that, especially because we're working with some Gemini stuff. When we're wanting to unwrap or let go of a relationship, sometimes it is wise to make ourselves aware that it is how we're showing up in a relationship, how we are seeing ourselves or our role in that relationship. So it may be an important time for us to take a look at roles altogether. So for me, as a spirit, as a person, as a being, what are my roles? Lay them out. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I can, lay all those. I'm business owner. It could be all those types of things, right? Lay all that, and what is it that you expect, or what is it that you think when you hear those roles? Now, what is that role when you're in it? How does that, do they align? Do they not align? What feels good? What doesn't? So it's our opportunity to really make sure that we're letting go what is an illusion that hasn't worked for us. It hasn't served us in any purpose. What is the truth of that role? And what is the truth of us? This being the first full moon, we can actually hold a really important cleansing ritual or a release ritual, celebration. It really kind of knocks on that door of, let's do it right this time, or let's do it the way we want to do it this time.
Yeah, that I love that, because one of the things that I was thinking about, and it kind of had to do with the Scorpio full or new moon that we had, where I've been repeatedly trying to, one of my roles is that I have a business. And what I have repeatedly been having issues with is demands that are made outside of that. And I get upset at the how, you know, other people on the outside, right? But what's really going on is that I feel insecure about, do I have a real job? And so that is reflected back at me through other people. And because I'm not like, no, I'm working tomorrow, then, you know, and then I get frustrated and I talk to myself about how I have a job.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, is that
Yeah,
that just makes me
absolutely.
think of like what you're
Yeah.
saying, but people
Yeah.
show up, and if I was like, I'm working tomorrow.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. Because I
Yeah,
mean, it could be that we get frustrated and we get snappy and we get, bitey, and then they're like, well, what happened? And sometimes we have the ability to have that communication piece with them and say, hey, I'm really struggling right now, or it's kind of muddy the way that I'm showing up right now. This is really what's been on my brain. It's not necessarily you just kind of came with this energy that's bouncing back at me, and I'm going, that's where it is right there. Okay, I need to speak it right now so that I can
yeah,
get it out, and I can figure out what it is that I want to do with it. Right, it might not be so much you, but it's interesting that you were the one that came to me and brought that, that little nugget, if you will, of what I need to understand or what I need to work with.
yeah,
um but that clarity that we're going to get from this release is really going to allow us to do um, much bigger things. We are really doing a lot of cleaning house, right now, and we're going to need it, especially kind of going into this winter time that we have. And solstice is really there to help us as a community. Okay, so we're really trying to work as a community. That's what we really try to do. Before technology and all this other kind of stuff, we really need to rely on each other during that time, for food, for warmth, for sustenance, for all that kind of thing. And it's allowing us to make space for that, because you've
yeah,
got to really let go of a lot of ego stuff, for you to be a well participating person in a community, because ego is going to cause a lot of fires. Ego is going to kind
yeah,
of get in the way, and it's hard sometimes to kind of let go of that. But looking at those roles sometime allows us to see maybe where the illusion might be hiding, or where that disconnect might not, um, or might be messing, with our thought process a bit. So,
yeah, yeah. And you know, this Gemini is about like who we're communicating with, who we're surrounded by, what kind of media we consume, you know, what kind of food are we giving our minds.
yes,
Um, yeah, and it's like Sagittarius is you know more what do I believe, what am I learning, you know, where am I
yes,
going, like where am I traveling to, what is my goal.
yes,
So yeah, and that kind of makes it, that's just what we're looking at. So we want to see, and what is our environment like, you know,
right.
is it messy, or do I at least know where everything is? And because I do believe that like sometimes a genius has a messy desk but they know where it all is, you know.
Yeah,
Are you happy with it? Are we happy with
right,
like our surroundings?
right. Yes,
So
yes, exactly. And now is, um, that perfect time when you're talking about your surroundings, and we're talking about release, and we're talking about detox,
mm,
and things like that. It We want to do those things so that way things don't become sluggish, right? So they don't become stagnant, they don't become heavy, they don't become immovable. And right now, the reason that we're looking at this, and the other aspect of this, is the environment that we can be physically in. We're talking about like our air, you're talking about what we eat. Sometimes we notice that I'm not meaning to get like super gross or anything like that, but we have a tendency to get a bit like phlegmy or mucusy, and that is because our adrenals, what kind of keeps us in that fight or flight or in that tense kind of state. They've been really tried and tested over these last couple of months.
Yeah.
Um, and it really works heavy on the pancreas, and that's why we see so many sneezy people and things like that. It's important for us to take a look at our environment, what we put in
Mhm.
to our bodies, um, so that way we have clear movement of those things. So a lot of stuff that we can kind of help to reduce the phlegm inside ourselves. I know it's kind of gross, but it also goes back to what we're watching, what we're paying attention to, because that can also stress us out to the point where we're producing too much stagnant energy inside our bodies.
Mhm.
Who we're communicating with, again, brings that stagnancy back. And it's all how your body's able to release and remove those things. Rituals is just gives us a bit of that so that way we can move that energy in a visual manner. But we also need to make sure that we're taking care of this vessel correctly, so that way we are able to move that energy and present ourselves the way that we need to. um I guess it's kind of like a little bit of a PSA for detox at that point. But
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of need to get into that, with that
Yeah.
release. It is a total kind of release of what it
Yep.
is that we don't want to be hanging on to anymore. And I know environments are hard to change, so maybe
Right.
it's not just something that we're able to so immediately change where we physically are at. But
Right.
again, how we're thinking of those roles in the environment
Yep.
can help move things as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, and our internal environment, our mind environment, that's kind of the easiest and most difficult place
Right.
to start, you know? I mean, one of the biggest changes that I made when I came out of rehab was I stopped watching The Walking Dead. And I fucking loved The Walking Dead. But I knew that something had to change. And that's just
Mhm.
a really symbolic one that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
Because I had PTSD and I had all of this anxiety stuff going on. And one of the things that my counselor said was that watching scary things, your body doesn't know that there's not a zombie in front of you. Your mind
Right.
knows it, but your body feels the fear and doesn't know. So,
Yes.
yeah. And so it was a big change, but it made a huge difference. And
Yes.
so that like what we consume is so important.
Yes. Because I mean, when we're moving into like the full moon again, it gets us in our feels, right? It
Mhm.
really kind of brings up those things that need to get brought up. It is our time as we're going out and setting out our crystals, collecting our moon water,
Mhm.
reconnecting with our emotions, really reconnecting with where they house and where they live. It is that ritual in and of itself to go outside and look at the moon when you're able to see that light in darkness.
Mhm.
So your environment then is completely removed. You're just there with the shine of the moon and the stars, and you're being asked at that point to be still. Because what else is going on, right? I mean, maybe the honk of the cars in the background, or maybe the kids playing in the background, or maybe the neighbor or something like that. But it really, that is the simplest, most, I guess, important ritual when you're taking time for yourself and you're getting out of that drum that's like
Mhm.
the roar of the everyday. I guess they call it the busy life, or they call it, sometimes we call it, being human, right? Kind of getting
Yeah.
into that mentality of just like, finding time to go
Yeah.
out and do those little things, really help us release, to kind of put ourselves back into alignment, um,
And
and give
to
us that that we might need.
yeah, and to bring the divine or spirit or God into your everyday, like to remember that, you know, we are here in the Maya, right? And that doesn't mean that we're in a bad place or, you know, that this is horrible, but it means that we're bringing the light into this experience to play, really, you know, and to
Yeah, and I love that you said that. Yes, because exactly when we're getting into like the holidays and everybody's like, we're getting into this more of like a collective, community kind of spirit, and we're really elevating as beings, right? Like together, we're kind of really trying to elevate ourselves a bit more to being kind, being joyful. Um, it does allow us that permission, I guess, to kind of sit outside for a little bit. But when you're doing that, listen to the wind, like listen to the trees, smell them, go for a hike, really be aware of what is resonating with you. Because, yeah, that environment can be taken for granted so often as we're trying to push those things out that we don't want. Be sure you're not boxing yourself into a corner of removing everything that is good, and everything that you are anchoring into. So that is definitely a time to pull in that divine, to remember that you are divine, that you are this matter that's not just flesh and bone and everything else. You do have that ability to connect with these bigger ideas, these bigger understandings, these movements inside of you that know they need to come out, but are maybe trying to find a way in which to come out. It's connecting with that unconsciousness that is trying to make manifest. So,
yeah. Yeah. Um, let me see. Astrologically, if there's more, just we've got Saturn square Uranus, which has been going on all year. The Gemini moon can be a little scattered and just so, which I feel like could be fun for this one, you know, like we'll be emotionally curious um and very interested in other people, like emotionally connecting with other people, even new people, you know, like Gemini, I always think it's the twins. And if you look at the wheel as like the you know, Aries is the baby, and then Taurus is the toddler, like I have, and the Gemini is the child, where it's just wants to, like, oh, there are other people, you know, like when babies play together, they play side by side, but then there's that age around 3 where they realize they can interact. And so um that's kind of this Gemini moon is going to want to connect with other people in a curious way, and I feel like that could be really fun because
yeah,
it, you know, a lot of the moons that I've been doing have been really they've been tough, you
yeah,
know, and this one actually has the support of Jupiter, and it's which, Jupiter can make things feel really extra because,
yeah,
you know, it blows things up, right? But if we have the mindset and are aware that we're like looking at our roles, like letting things go, looking at how we show up, looking at what we're feeding ourselves, you know, food and media wise, um, it's just, yeah, it feels
yeah,
better
it does.
than the other
Yeah.
ones have been.
This
So,
one's good. Yeah. And I
um,
really, really am excited about this one because just like before, when we weren't, really actively doing a lot of releasing or a lot of calling in, um, it does give us that, different kind of opportunity at this point to show up a little bit more excited, right? We're
yeah,
ready. We're
yeah,
we're really, really into it at this point to make that release and to make some notes and put some things down, because we were kind of at bay there, for a little bit. So absolutely, like that child aspect, that curiosity, that we're gonna do this, you know?
Yeah,
I can do this.
I
So
can
it's
do
got
it.
some really good energy. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Or I want to learn about it. Um, okay. So that was our full or new moon solar eclipse and the full moon for December. I really enjoy doing these with Michelle, so I think we're going to do more.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how you guys liked it. If you have any questions about the moons this time, you can email me. I got a new email address. It's Zube, Zube at teresazube.com. If there's anybody out there who knows about editing videos, like just some basics, and they want to help me out, maybe we can figure out a trade for a reading or something like that, because that's the one thing I don't know how to do. But anyway, you guys will for sure be seeing Michelle back.
Yes, love it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything and good luck this full moon. You guys are going to rock it. It's going to be amazing. All right. So
Awesome.
much love to y'all.
All right. Peace. Namaste, guys. What am I doing? Oh, wait.